They were kings and queens of the dance hall, prophets of reggae, voices of a generation. But behind the music, private wars with addiction that ended careers and lives. These are the 15 most devastating drug downfalls in reggae history, and the lessons buried in their tragedies. 1. Peter Tosh stood as a towering figure in reggae music, a founding member of the Wailers whose uncompromising vision and militant lyricism made him a legend. Yet beneath the revolutionary anthems and defiant persona, he wrestled with private battles, ones that would cast a shadow over his final years and contribute to his untimely, violent end. In the early 1980s, as his solo career reached new heights, those closest to him noticed troubling changes. The same man who once preached spiritual discipline through Rastafari and cannabis began slipping into the grip of harder vices, cocaine and alcohol. Some say it was a way to betrayal by the music industry. Others point to personal turmoil. Whatever the cause, the shift was undeniable. Performances grew erratic, his once sharp focus dulled. The rebel who had survived police brutality and political threats now faced an enemy within. Then came the night that sealed his fate. On September 11, 1987, 3 armed men stormed his Jamaican home. Among them a man Tosh had once considered a friend. What followed was cold-blooded murder. Tosh and 2 others executed in what authorities called a robbery gone wrong. But rumors swirled. Had his struggles left him exposed? Were there darker forces at work against the outspoken activist? The full truth died with him that night. Peter Tosh's legacy endures in every defiant court of legalize it, every rallying cry of equal rights. But his story carries a haunting footnote, a warning about the price of unchecked pain, and how even the strongest voices can be silenced too soon. He remains reggae's unbroken rebel, but his death stands as a stark reminder. No warrior, no matter how fierce, is invincible. 2.
Next generation will be handmade.
Junior Muvin's ethereal falsetto on Police and Thieves made him a reggae immortal. The haunting 1976 anthem, later covered by The Clash, cemented his place in music history. Yet behind the shimmering vocals lay a life ravaged by crack cocaine, a descent so brutal it reduced the once celebrated singer to sleeping rough on Kingston streets. By the 1990s, Muvin's addiction had consumed him. The man who once shared stages with legends now wandered downtown Kingston in tattered clothes, scavenging for his next hit. Fellow musicians would spot him, a ghost of his former self, muttering incoherently near Orange Street's record shops where his golden voice once echoed. Occasional attempt at comeback shows ended disastrously, his frail frame struggling to hit those signature high notes as the drug tightened its grip. Muvin's final years saw fleeting moments of hope. A 2008 UK tour where fans wept at his diminished state, a Grammy nomination for Police and Thieves' 30th anniversary reissue. But the damage was done. When he died in 2013 at 67, the obituary celebrated the artist, but whispered about the man who became crack's cautionary tale. His masterpiece still soundtracks rebellions worldwide, its brilliance forever shadowed by the tragedy of its creator's unraveling. 3.
You are my A1. You are my
Sugar Minot's voice was a sound of generation, a bridge between roots reggae's golden era and dancehall's birth, his influence echoing through hits like Good Thing Going and Herb Man Hustling. But behind the sweet harmonies and studio brilliance lurked a struggle that nearly destroyed him. Cocaine's grip turned the prolific hitmaker into a cautionary tale, his addiction draining his finances, health, and creative spark at the height of his powers. By the late 1980s, whispers spread through Kingston's music circles. Sugar wasn't right. Studio sessions were missed. Performances canceled last minute. The man who had mentored future stars like Tenor Saw and Johnny Osborne now burned through money and goodwill, chasing a high that left him gaunt and unreliable. Even as he continued recording, the sparkle in his voice dimmed, the once boundless energy replaced by erratic behavior. Minot fought his demons publicly in later years, speaking openly about addiction's toll while trying to revive his career. When he died suddenly in 2010 at just 54, the reggae world mourned not just an icon, but what might have been had the drugs not stolen years of his genius. His legacy lives on in every dancehall artist who samples his work, Their success a bittersweet reminder of the mentor who lost his way. For Gregory Isaac's velvet voice made him reggae's undisputed cool ruler, a man who could turn heartbreak into poetry with songs like Night Nurse and My Number One. But behind that smooth, effortless charm raged a private war with crack cocaine, an addiction so vicious it consumed his fortune, his health, and nearly his legendary status. By the 1990s, the man who once commanded stadiums was reduced to taking bus fare from fans just to get to shows, his diamond-studded rings long pawned to feed the habit. The signs were impossible to ignore. Where Isaacs once glided onto stages in crisp suits, he now appeared disheveled, his once rich vocals strained as the drugs took their toll. Promoters grew wary. Would he even show up? Would he be coherent if he did? Yet even at his lowest, audiences still worshipped him, forgiving missed notes and delayed starts because when that voice connected, magic still happened. His final years saw brief flickers of the old Gregory, a poignant performance at Jamaica's Reggae Sumfest in 2008, where frail but determined Isaacs proved the voice remained, even if the body was failing. When he succumbed to lung cancer in 2010, the world mourned not just the artist, but the tragedy of a king dethroned by his own vices. Today, his music plays in taxis from Kingston to London, a bittersweet reminder that even the smoothest rulers can fall. 5. The rise and fall of Frankie Paul, a voice silenced too soon. There was a time when Frankie Paul could do no wrong. With a voice so rich and versatile, he earned the nickname Jamaican Stevie Wonder, dominating dancehall and reggae in the 1980s and 90s with hits like Pass the Two Shing Pang and Worries in the Dance. His talent was boundless. He could sing lovers rock with aching sweetness, then flip into rapid-fire DJ verses with effortless precision. For a while, it seemed like nothing could stop him, but crack cocaine had other plans. By the early 2000s, the man who once packed out venues across Jamaica and Europe was now a ghost of his former self. The addiction ate through his money, his health, and eventually his dignity. Fans would spot him wandering the streets of Kingston, frail and disoriented, a far cry from the dynamic performer who once held crowds in the palm of his hand. Promoters, who once fought to book him, now hesitated. Would he even make it to the stage? And if he did, would he be coherent? There were moments when the old Frankie flickered back to life. A brief resurgence in the mid-2000s, a few shows where his voice, though weathered, still carried that magic. But the damage was done. Years of addiction had ravaged his body, and in 2017, at just 51 years old, diabetes and kidney failure took him for good. When news of his death spread, the tributes poured in, fellow artists, producers, and fans mourning not just the loss of a legend, but the tragedy of a genius derailed. 6. The crumbling of a crown. Yami Bolo's tragic descent. There was a time when Yami Bolo's voice floated through Kingston's dance halls like a sacred hymn, his rich, devotional tones marking him as roots reggae's next great torchbearer. In the 1990s, when dancehall slackness dominated, BOLO stood apart. A Rasta troubadour carrying the flame of conscious lyrics with songs like Jah Love and No Night in Zion. Producers lined up to work with him. Fans saw in him the second coming of Garnett Silk. The future stretched before him like a red carpet. Then the cracks began to show. What started as whispers backstage, Yami not looking right, became impossible to ignore. The once disciplined artist began missing shows. When he did appear, his performances grew erratic, that golden voice sometimes disappearing mid-verse, as if the words had slipped his mind. Kingston streets told the real story. The rising star now spotted in rough neighborhoods, his once neat dreads matted, his eyes hollowed out by the hunger of addiction. The mugshots told the saddest chapter. Where album covers once captured his radiant spirit, police photos showed a gaunt stranger, arrested for petty theft, for disturbances, for the desperate act of a man chasing demons in crack pipes. Promoters who'd booked him at his peak now cross his name off lists. The same voice that once sang of Zion's glory now slurred through half-remembered lyrics at dingy street corners. Occasionally, like sunlight breaking through storm clouds, glimpses of the old Yami emerged. A surprisingly strong performance at a small club, a brief studio session where, for 3 miraculous minutes, the voice was pure again, but the relief never lasted. The industry that once nurtured him now watched helplessly as he became another of reggae's cautionary tales, a reminder that not every fallen star gets to rise again. Today, when Jah Love plays on Jamaican radio, it carries a particular poignancy. The lyrics still inspire, the melody still uplifts, but the voice belongs to a ghost. The artist Yami Bolo could have been, before the streets claimed him. His story lingers in the spaces between the notes, a haunting reminder how fragile genius can be when addiction comes calling. 7.
Enjoy it so.
The Fading Alarm. Tenor Saw's brief flame and enduring mystery. His voice was the sound of an era, raw, urgent, crackling with energy. When Tenor Saw shouted asterisk, "Ring the alarm!" Asterisk in 1985, he didn't just make a hit, he bottled lightning. The song became dancehall's emergency siren, a street anthem that pulsed through Kingston sound systems and traveled far beyond the island. At just 21, he stood at the edge of stardom, his future as bright as a Jamaican sun. But behind the explosive talent, something darker flickered. The music business moved fast, and Tenor Saw, born Clyde Bright, struggled to keep pace. Friends noticed changes. The young artist who once brimmed with creative energy became unpredictable, his mood swinging like a pendulum. Some blamed the pressures of sudden fame. Others whisper about the substances creeping into his life. Whatever the cause, the man who made crowds erupt with Ring the Alarm began slipping through the cracks. Then came the night in Texas, October 1988, a place far from home. The details remain hazy even now. Some say it was a hit and run. Others insist something more sinister happened. What's certain is that Tenor Saw was found dead on a lonely road near Dallas, just 24 years old, his final moments as mysterious as the rhythms he once rode. The tragedy wasn't just in how he died, but in how much was left unsung. Tenor Saw had barely begun. His voice, that unforgettable, gravelly cry, should have echoed for decades. Instead, it lives only in recordings, frozen in time, leaving fans to wonder what might have been. Today, when Ring the Alarm plays at a dance, something remarkable happens. For 3 minutes, Tenor Saw is alive again. The crowd still shouts every word. The rhythm still feels dangerous. But when the song fades, so does he, returning to shadows where legends and unanswered questions linger. His story is dancehall's unfinished symphony, a blazing verse cut short, leaving only echoes and the faint sound of an alarm ringing in the distance. 8. The thunder that fell silent. Prince Far Eye's heavy crown asterisk asterisk. They called him the voice of thunder, for good reason. When Prince Far Eye spoke, or more accurately, boomed over a dub rhythm, the ground seemed to shake. His was the kind of voice that didn't just come from the diaphragm, but from some deeper place, as ancient as the hills of Jamaica itself. Tracks like Heavy Manners and Under Heavy Manners weren't just songs. They were prophecies delivered over bass lines, warnings from a modern-day Jeremiah with a microphone. But thunderclouds carry their own weight, and Far Eye's struggles with alcoholism became his personal storm. In the late 1970s, as his reputation as a dub poet grew, so did the bottle's grip. Studio engineers learned to work around it, capturing his vocals early in the day before the drink took hold. The same voice that could recite biblical passages with terrifying clarity might later slur through takes, the mighty oak of his delivery trembling in the wind of addiction. Yet even at his most compromised, that power never fully left him. There was always something undeniable in his tone, some unshakable authority that made even his roughest performances compelling. Then came September 15th, 1983, a night when Kingston's violence touched the reggae world yet again. Intruders broke into his home, and the voice of thunder was silenced forever by gunfire. Police called it a robbery, but those who knew Jamaica's turbulent music scene wondered, had the alcoholism made him vulnerable? Had his outspoken lyrics made him enemies? The questions outlasted the answers. Today, when you play Heavy Manners, you can still feel it. That voice like Judgment Day itself, warning a societal collapse while its owner battled private demons. Prince Far left behind no tidy redemption arc, just a catalog of profound music, and the uneasy knowledge that sometimes the voices that see the clearest struggle the most to bear their own vision. The thunder still rumbles in his recordings, but the storm, tragically, passed too soon. 9. The rise and tragic fall of Dirtsman, a dancehall legend lost too soon. In the vibrant world of 1990s dancehall, few artists burned as brightly or as briefly as Dirtsman. With his gruff voice, raw lyrical flow, and unapologetic street edge, he quickly became one of Jamaica's most promising talents. Tracks like Hot This Year and God Nah Sleep weren't just hits. They were anthems, cementing his place in the dancehall pantheon. But behind the music, a darker struggle was unfolding, one that would cut his career tragically short. Dirtsman's rise was meteoric, but the pressures of fame and the temptations of Kingston's underworld took their toll. By the early 90s, rumors swirled about his battles with drug addiction, a struggle that began to overshadow his music. Fans watched helplessly as the man who once commanded stages with electrifying energy became a shadow of himself, his talent dimmed by personal demons. Then, in November 1993, the unthinkable happened. Dirtsman was gunned down in a brutal murder that sent shockwaves through the reggae and dancehall community. The details remain murky, tangled in the same web of violence and vice that haunted his later years. He was only 28. His death wasn't just a loss of an artist. It was a silencing of a voice that had barely reached its peak. In the decades since, Dirtsman's legacy endures, a bittersweet reminder of what could have been. His music still echoes through sound systems, his raw energy immortalized in every bass line. But for those who remember his fire, the question lingers: how much more could he have given if fate had been kinder? 3 decades later, Dirtsman remains a cautionary tale, a genius undone by the very streets that shaped him. Yet in dancehall's history, his name still burns bright, a legend gone too soon, but never forgotten. 10.
There's no pretense.
Little Roy, the gentle voice of reggae who faced his own demons. In the golden age of reggae, Little Roy's voice stood out. Soft yet powerful, spiritual yet deeply human. Known for hits like Bongo Naya and his soul-stirring cover of Nirvana's Smells Like Teen Spirit, he carved a unique space in music, blending roots reggae's purity with an almost mystical calm. But behind that serene presence was a man who wrestled with the same temptations that haunted so many of his peers. Unlike some of reggae's more turbulent figures, Lil Roy's struggles with substance abuse never spiraled into public chaos. There were no tabloid scandals, no dramatic falls from grace, just a quiet battle fought in the shadows of his career. Those close to him knew the toll it took. The same man who sang with such clarity on records sometimes stumbled in the real world, caught between the pressures of the music industry and the vices that offered fleeting escape. Yet through it all, his artistry never dimmed. Even in his hardest moments, music remained his refuge. His later work, especially his unexpected dive into grunge reinterpretations, proved that his creativity was unshaken, a testament to resilience. Where others might have crumbled, Little Roy kept evolving, his gentle spirit refusing to be extinguished. Today, his legacy isn't defined by struggle but by survival. He stands as a reminder that even the softest voices can weather storms. In a genre often marked by tragedy, Little Roy's story is one of quiet endurance. A man who faces demons, kept singing, and left behind a catalog as peaceful and profound as his spirit. 11. Michael Ebo Cooper, the third world maestro who fought silent battles. Behind the shimmering harmonies and revolutionary sound of Third World, Michael Ebo Cooper was more than just a keyboardist. He was a musical architect. With his effortless melodies and deep roots in reggae's golden era, he helped shape anthems like Now That We Found Love and 96 Degrees in the Shade, Astra songs that defined a generation. Yet for all the light he brought to the world, Ebo carried his own shadows. Unlike the larger-than-life collapses of some reggae icons, Ebo's struggles with addiction played out quietly away from the spotlight. There were no sensational headlines, no public breakdowns. Just a man wrestling with the same demons that had claimed so many brilliant minds in music. Those who knew him best saw the toll it took. The missed sessions, the moments when the spark in his eyes dimmed. But even in his hardest times, his love for music never wavered. When he passed in 2023, the world mourned a legend, but few truly understood the private battles he had fought. His death wasn't framed as a cautionary tale, and perhaps that's the best, because his legacy shouldn't be reduced to struggle. Instead, it should be remembered for the joy he created, the boundaries he pushed, and the way his fingers danced across the keys even when life weighed heavy. Third World's music was always about unity and resilience, and in many ways, so was Ebo's life. He wasn't just a musician. He was proof that even the brightest flames face storms. And though he's gone, his melodies linger, timeless, uplifting, and forever a testament to man who played to the pain. 12.
My lonely grave to the end of the world and beyond.
Kingston, the ugly one's unseen battle behind the mic. The voice was unmistakable, raspy, commanding, dripping with raw energy. Kingston, the self-proclaimed ugly one, didn't just ride the rhythm, he attacked it, bending sound as will as one of dancehall's original pioneers. Tracks like Fire Corner and Lee Van Cleef weren't just songs, they were declarations, proving that charisma didn't need a pretty face. But behind bravado and booming sound system clashes, Stitt fought a quieter war, one against the vices that crept into his life as the spotlight faded. In his prime, he was unstoppable, a DJ's DJ, the man who helped bridge the gap between reggae's roots and dancehall's birth. But as the years wore on, the same intensity that fueled his music sometimes turned inward. Friends and collaborators noticed the changes, the occasional slurred speech, the missed gigs, the slow dimming of the fire that once made him a legend. The streets that had once cheered him now whispered about his struggles. Another cautionary tale in a genre littered with them. Yet even in his lowest moments, the music never abandoned him. You could still catch flashes of the old Stitt, eyes lighting up at the sound of a heavy bass line, his gravelly voice slipping back into that iconic flow. When the mood struck, he was a fighter, after all, a man who built a legacy on defiance. When he passed in 2012, the tributes poured in, but few acknowledged the battles he'd waged offstage. Maybe that's how he would have wanted it. King Stitt was never one for pity, just respect. And today, his voice still echoes through dancehall history, a reminder that even the toughest souls face storms. The ugly one may be gone, but his growl lives on, unbroken, unforgettable, and forever king of his corner. 13. Daddy Freddy, the fast-tongued rebel who outran his demons. They called him the fastest rapper in reggae, a human machine gun spitting lyrics at breakneck speed over bone-shaking dancehall rhythms. Daddy Freddy was a force of nature, his rapid-fire flow blazing trails on tracks like Raga Raga and Run Come long before the world caught up to his genius. But for all his verbal dexterity, there was one enemy he couldn't outpace, the crack pipe that nearly destroyed him. At his peak in the 80s, Freddy was unstoppable. Kingston's answer to American hip-hop, a lyrical acrobat who left crowds breathless. But the same intensity that fueled his music also led him down darker paths. The stories became legend. The missed shows, the disappearing acts, the talent slowly being eaten alive by addiction. For a while, it seemed a man who could wrap circles around anyone might become just another tragic footnote in dancehall's hard luck history. Then came the escape. Freddy's move to the UK wasn't just a change of scenery. It was a lifeline. In the cold streets of London, far from the triggers of Kingston, he began rebuilding. The fire in his voice returned, this time tempered by hard-won wisdom. Collaborations with punk and metal acts showed his versatility, proving the old lion could still roar in new jungles. Today, Daddy Freddy stands as something rare in reggae, a survivor. His story is about the fall. It's about the comeback. The man who once raced against his own demons now measures his words carefully, each rhyme a victory lap. The fastest tongue in dancehall didn't just survive the streets. He outran them, leaving behind not just a legacy of groundbreaking music, but proof that even the hardest cases can rewrite their endings. 14.
Little darling.
Bob Marley, the rebel saint who carried the weight of a movement. Even now, decades after his passing, the name Bob Marley doesn't just conjure music. It summons an entire worldview. His was the voice that turned reggae into a global prayer, a call to arms wrapped in irresistible rhythm. From the gritty streets of Trench Town to sold-out stadiums worldwide, Marley didn't just sing about revolution, he soundtracked it. Yet behind the lion's mane and the transcendent smile, there was a man who bore burdens far heavier than his anthems suggested. The struggle wasn't just political, it was personal. Long before cancer claimed him at 36, Marley navigated a minefield of betrayals, assassination attempts, and the crushing expectations of being reggae's reluctant messiah. His spiritual devotion to Rastafari was unwavering, but the temptations of the road, women, weed, the gnawing loneliness of fame, tested even his discipline. Those closest to him saw the toll, the exhaustion masked by spliff smoke, the way his shoulders sagged when the crowds weren't watching. And then there was a pain, literal, searing pain, that he performed through during his final tour, his body failing even as his spirit blazed brighter. The legendary No Woman, No Cry live performance in 1975 wasn't just a concert moment. It was a man pouring every ounce of his soul into music, knowing deep down he was running out of time. Marley's genius wasn't just in crafting perfect songs. It was in making revolution sound like love, in turning suffering into something you could dance to. His death didn't silence him, it magnified him. Today, his face stares from dorm rooms and protest banners with the same quiet intensity, a reminder that the brightest flames burn fastest. The rebel became a saint, the musician a myth. But in those recordings, raw, urgent, alive, Bob Marley remains forever human. 15. Tristan Palmer, the silky voice that fought through the storm. There was a time when Tristan Palmer's voice floated through Jamaican airwaves like liquid gold, smooth, effortless, and dripping with soul. His 1980s classics like Entertainment and Joker Smoker weren't just songs. They were cultural touchstones that defined an era when dancehall was finding its voice. But beneath those honeyed melodies, a darker battle raged, one that would test a man behind the music in ways few could imagine. Palmer's struggle with addiction didn't come with the fireworks of a public meltdown. It was quieter, more insidious, the slow erosion of a brilliant mind by substances that promised escape but delivered chains. Those who knew him best watched helplessly as the sharp-dressing crooner, with impeccable timing, began missing beats in his personal life. Gigs were canceled, opportunities slipped away, and that velvety voice, once so reliable, became unpredictable. Yet even in the darkest valleys, Palmer's talent never fully abandoned him. There were moments, flashes of the old magic when he'd step up to the mic, and time would stand still. Proof that the real Tristan Palmer was still in there somewhere. The road back wasn't easy, but the man who gave us some of reggae's most enduring melodies showed the same determination in his personal battles as he did in crafting perfect songs. Today, Palmer's legacy stands as something more complex than just great music. It's a testament to the fragility of genius, the price of addiction, and the resilience of the human spirit. His records still spin on turntables worldwide, their sweetness undimmed by time, just like the hope that even our brightest stars can find their way back home.